We're back, baby. It is the Charity Stripe. Pitcher free throws because they are free. Fisher, Tosopoulos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider. It's Friday, July 14th. We're out here in nice, sunny California. The weather is back with the aforementioned karaoke day that we were debating whether we had this week. Listeners, on Friday or Saturday is officially Friday. So the three of us will be heading to sing our little hearts out tonight. But before we do that, new pod on Believe. We're very excited for this one. They came out swinging, no pun intended. Hollywood Swingin guys. Actor Stephen Bishop played a baseball player in Moneyball, and then we have 16-year vet, actual baseball player Jerry Hairston Jr., one of the king families of baseball, joining us today. They came out hot with the Barry Bonds interview, fellas, and that made some noise, a lot of noise. And I kind of want to start. I mean, it's one of the biggest debates in sports, and Jerry, that was your era of playing, and that's all of our eras of watching. What going into it? Did you guys' opinions change, right? Did you guys come into it being like, I want these guys in the Hall of Fame, this group of players in the Hall of Fame that have the numbers, but also have the allegations in the Hall of Fame? Or were you guys kind of both on the fence? And then talking to Barry, did you guys sway at all?
I'll let you go first, Steven.
Well, no, I've always wanted these guys in the Hall. Well, hold on. Let me back up. I was actually a real baseball player as well.
Oh, apologies.
A real baseball player as well.
My bad, dude.
I can't let that go. I can't let that go. I played in the minor leagues. I played for Atlanta and Baltimore, so I can't let that slip.
Sorry, I didn't realize.
That slide. But anyway, I digress. I always wanted these guys in the Hall because I understand how difficult baseball is. It's the only profession that we know of as humankind that you can be a failure 70% of the time and still be a Hall of Famer, still be considered great. And I understand that, what was going on in the era as far as rules and testing in place and all of that. But the one thing that really stuck out with me was I don't care. I could get a guy off the street and every performance-enhancing drug known to mankind, stick him with it, and he's not going to wake up tomorrow and hit 100 in the big leagues, let alone, hit 300 or hit 70 homers or go on the tears or win however many Cy Youngs that Rocket won. It's so difficult to do, and just in the realm of hitting, we'll talk about, it does not help putting a round bat on a round ball squarely. You still got to do it. You still got to have the proper bat path. You still got to have the proper timing. You still got to have all of those things going for you. And even the strength part of it. You don't stick yourself and then wake up tomorrow strong. You still got to put in the work. You know what I mean? You still got to do it. Sure, it helps you with recovery and whatever else it does. But for me, I honestly, because I knew the numbers of people that were doing it, as far as the percentages of the players in the league that were doing it, I knew how I was approached as a minor leaguer to consider doing it. It just was going on. It was part of the game at the time. So it never bothered me. It never mattered to me. It didn't change my opinion of these guys in any way, shape, or form.
To kind of piggyback what Steven said, well, first and foremost, not only was I a baseball player, I'm also an actor as well. Yes. I appeared on the show Shooter. You can watch it on Netflix. So, Steven, I'm also an actor.
Well, we acted together, Jerry.
We also acted together as well.
So you combine you both now, both actors.
Exactly. I just want to make sure we get that out of the way.
My opinion.
Exactly. My opinion kind of changed more so probably after being a player. Even though I was in the thick of things, of course, when I was playing, I was aware that guys were using steroids. I just didn't know really to what extent. Now that we go back on it and we see so many guys used it, how are you going to decipher, okay, who gets in, who gets out? Now, pretty much that they use performance-enhancing drugs, enter into the Hall of Fame. And there's been a number of guys in the last 10, 15 years or so enter the Hall of Fame. Where do you draw the line? And listen, if you're going to let a couple guys in, you got to let everybody in. You just cannot pick and choose. And I've always been of the belief, if guys like Kennesaw Mountain Landis, the commissioner of baseball, way back in the day, who wouldn't allow black players to play in his league, the major leagues. If he's in the Hall of Fame, then people that deserve, that have performed on the field, regardless, because they had rules in place, they still were able to perform. They're still able to play, and they have all those records. They should be allowed in the Hall of Fame. So again, it's a slippery slope. If you're allowing Landis in, if you're allowing Ty Cobb, who obviously was a great player but a horrific human being, he's in the Hall of Fame. Where do we draw the line of holier than thou? Okay, remember, this is a museum. This is a place of records. It's not the place of great people. Okay, this is the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of good people, holier than thou people. So again, I believe Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. And you're talking to a guy that was hit by Roger Clemens on a variety of occasions. Roger used to throw at me. He didn't like me for some reason. Maybe he didn't like the look of my face. But I faced Roger. I know how great he was. He was a fierce competitor on the mound. His performance, the way he pitched, the way he went about his business, World Series champion, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So again, I think when we start excluding guys, okay, we're going to allow this guy in, but we're not going to allow this guy in because he wasn't nice to me. That's just terrible. The Hall of Fame should be the best players that ever walked the earth. Period.
And let me just add to that. When we talk about the best players, and let's Rocket was obviously, what was he, a 6-time, 7-time Cy Young Award winner? But let's talk about Barry. I was asked a question yesterday, have I ever seen anybody at the elite level of Barry Bonds be, quote, blackballed in the sport? And I said, there is really nobody on the elite level of Barry Bonds. And when I said that, I thought about it and I was like, well, maybe there are a couple people. But then I did the research. Who do we consider to be the GOAT of GOATs in American sports? Somebody call it out. Who do we usually consider?
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan won 5 MVPs. Barry Bonds won 7 MVPs. So even the GOAT of GOATs wasn't able to achieve what Barry Bonds achieved in his sport. Okay. And so, when you rattle off the numbers that, if you watch the podcast, if you listen to the podcast, I rattled off at the top of our show about Barry. If you take his name away from it and you just put numbers there, you just say, hey, these are the numbers that person A produced while playing this sport. Like I said on the show, it is ridiculous that guy is not in the Hall of Fame. It's insane. He's the only guy ever in the history of the sport to go 500 home runs, 500 steals. Not to mention all the other records, but he was, and I don't think there's even a 2-time MVP that's not in the Hall of Fame. He was a 3-time MVP in Pittsburgh before any of these allegations were levied against him. So it's a travesty that he's not, in the Hall based on just that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, if a guy, Jerry, you play with A-Rod too. And I think a lot of people, let's throw him in the mix because he's in that same caliber talent of Clemens and Bonds. He's a guy without, steroid allegations, without steroids, is considered to be a top tier player, an MVP player. So a guy that quote unquote didn't really need it. And I think a lot of people took gripe with those 3 guys because they felt they didn't need it, but they took it anyway. But going off the points, and it said in your interview in the clip that went so viral, Barry Bonds made it through the court of law clean. These are just allegations still. And I found it to be, I think the crazy thing is, and we were talking about this yesterday, the 3 of us, was guys like Piazza, guys like, Pudge and other players had allegations around them, but they were put into the Hall of Fame.
David Ortiz.
And then on top of that, your brother played for the Mets the season that R.A. Dickey, right? Jerry won the Cy Young. So he wins the Cy Young at age 37. So I know he's a knuckleballer and it's a bit different for those pitchers. He's not putting as much wear and tear on his arms, but why is it so different Why is it so unfathomable that a guy can't have his best season at age 37?
Well, I mean, you kind of said it earlier. Allegations. Again, this is America, man. You know, are you guilty first, right? Or is anybody can say anything about you and say, okay, guilty. That's a slippery slope. You know, so whether you believe Barry did it, if you believe Roger did it or Alex Rodriguez did it, okay. But the fact of the matter is they were still allowed to play and perform. There were rules in place. Now, if they had broken the law or broken the rules, they would get suspended, whether it's 50 games. I think it's 80 games now. There were rules in place. So obviously with Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, they weren't suspended ever at any point of their career. So it's always tough to go back. Okay, you know what? We believe you did it in 1999. Boom, you're punished. And then also, okay, we like certain players because he treated the media better. Even though the allegations are there, he was nice to me, so check. I'm going to allow him to go in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that to me, that's kind of playing God, the judge of all judges. The fact of the matter is, it should be really cut and dry. If this person performed at the highest level, like Steven mentioned, Barry Bonds, 7 MVPs. Fans aren't stupid. Dan Patrick had his show. He mentioned this a couple days ago, talking about Barry Bonds. He asked the fans, it was all over Twitter, should Barry Bonds be on the Hall of Fame or in the Hall of Fame? Fans, 70% said that Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame because fans aren't stupid. You don't have to like a guy. You can even hate a guy and say, you know, I don't like him, but you know what? Man, he balled, he performed. These are facts. He should be in the Hall of Fame. So fans aren't stupid. They realize what has gone on the last 15, 20, 50 years, and they understand are the best, and those should be in the Hall of Fame.
My question
to take that a step further, let me take that one step further. I did a pod last night with a guy named Blake Ruffino, and he told me that over various platforms, 1 million people voted on whether or not Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. And 800,000 said he should. And, you know, like, you know, what Jerry said about the 80-game suspension and all that, the lifetime ban doesn't even come into play until the third offense. Okay, so if he's never even been suspended once, and Major League Baseball is not punishing him by taking the records away or, you know, putting any kind of, you know, expunging any numbers or anything like they did to Reggie Bush, you know, with the Heisman. They're not doing any of those things to Barry. Why is the Hall doing it? And like Jerry said, you know, when we're talking about the museum for the best players in the game, it is not a popularity contest because Ty Cobb is in that place and he wasn't a great guy. You know, Mickey Mantle is in that place. And apparently from what I've read, Mickey Mantle took, you know, was either accused or found to have taken steroids. He had some sort of a wound on his foot, I think it was, that you know caused him to miss a bunch of time, and they said it was an injection site. This is what I read. This is not my opinion. This is what I read. So, you know, we've got known cheaters in the Hall of Fame. Gaylord Perry, the spitballer, he put every substance known to mankind on the ball. You know, there's so many guys with questionable, you know, moral compasses and questionable actions on the field. That's one part I also have to say, you know, I also have an issue with is when people call him a cheater. You know, to me, I it's tough for me to say cheater because, like I said, you still got to put in all that work. You still have to do things that actually cause the performance enhancing addition to your body to actually take effect. For me, cheating is putting something on the ball, doing something in game that actually affects the outcome of the game. To me, that's cheating. I don't see what these guys did as cheating per se.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And to be completely honest, like, what is it going to take to get the power away from these writers? Because I feel like There's not enough power to the players. There's not enough power to the people that actually play the game. It's all these old writers that probably haven't picked up a baseball bat since they were 15 years old.
If that.
Well,
if that, correct. Maybe Little League.
Well, they have
that.
another.
If
They
that.
have another committee. I think it's a committee of former players that are in the Hall of Fame. I think Tony La Russa leads that. Bobby Cox and a couple other guys lead that because we know a few years back Harold Baines was voted in by this group. So I think Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, guys like that, will have another chance, another opportunity. I don't know if it's 5 years away, 10 years away, and 10 years from now. I'm not sure, but they're going to have another chance to get in. I'm hoping that votes them in because, listen, this is history. And like you guys have stated, this is a museum. It's not a museum of good, holier-than-thou people. It's the best players that ever played. I played against Barry Bonds. I played against Ken Griffey Jr. I played against Mike Trout. I played with and against Bryce Harper. So I've gotten a chance to see the two best players, in my opinion, that I've ever seen. Shohei Ohtani is obviously skyrocketing towards the top. Okay, but my eyes have ever seen Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds. Those two best players I've ever seen in my life. Okay, obviously Junior's in, rightfully so. I believe Barry Bonds should be in as well.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like just from a fan's perspective of me watching the game, and I love the historical record point because in 50 years, like people still need to be talking about Barry Bonds. They still need to be watching Barry Bonds clips. I enjoyed the game of baseball so much as a fan, watching him step up to the plate, watching the pitcher look terrified, watching the announcer build this hype and suspense of what was to come, and then seeing the result, and seeing that ball go into the river and then, or into the ocean, and them have to go and kayak and go get it. Like that was, it was a feeling that I want other people to enjoy and to have.
Must see TV. Must see TV. And I'm so glad that Barry is talking, and we're very appreciative that, he chose, Hollywood Swingin podcast. And, Steven asked the question, which was a great question, and he gave him the opportunity. Hey, you don't have to answer this. But Barry wanted to answer it. And I'm so glad he did, because now Barry is able to see the outpouring of affection that fans have over him. 800,000 people in that one poll believe, 80% believe that he should be a Hall of Famer. Dan Patrick,
over the course of like a day.
Over a day. Dan Patrick.
Over the course of a day.
I mean, we put it up on our Instagram, and we get hundreds and hundreds of votes, and everyone is like, this is anyone. 6% of people said no.
Yeah, because we remember. I was on the field. When I'm playing against Barry Bonds. He made us look like we were in high school. You know what I'm saying? That's how dominant he was. I don't think we'll ever see a guy. And Buck Showalter is one of the best managers that this game has seen. Buck intentionally walked Barry Bonds with the bases loaded, which turned out to be a brilliant move because they had a comfortable. If Barry ends up hitting a grand slam in that, then they're in trouble. But he walks in a run, they get the next guy, they win the ball game because it's about winning the ball game. Do you want to have Barry Bonds with the base loaded and give him a cookie? Of course not. That's how dominant Barry Bonds was. So I'm glad Barry was able to speak out, and he used that platform to speak out because Barry can see how much fans appreciated him, how much fans love him even to this day and want to see him in the Hall of Fame.
And you know what else I'm glad that he did? I'm glad that he let it be known that it does bother him. You know what I mean? That humanized him a lot. And, I think the fact that he hadn't spoken on it, and he's been, he's proud, you know what I mean? He's a proud guy. He doesn't, he didn't put it out there, but he let the world know that, like he said, himself, I'm not a wall sitting here who doesn't care. Of course I care. And there's very reasons. There's varied reasons. It's not just I want to be in the Hall. It's that, I didn't get to stand with certain guys that I wanted to say thank you with. Thank you to. And those guys have now passed away. So I'll never get a chance to say thank you to, to Frank Robinson and guys like that he wanted to stand with and say his thank you to. I'm glad that he got an opportunity to speak out and show his human side, because I've known Barry for a long time and he's a great guy. You know what I mean? There's a misconception that he's not really a good guy because of the way he treated media and things like that. But there were reasons for that. There were reasons that, growing up in clubhouses and seeing how media was treating his dad, there were reasons for the way he was treating those people. And I just wanted to be, out there that he is human. He is a great guy. He's done a lot for me in my life. He's done things, just for charities that I support and things like that. He's come and played in my charity golf tournament. He's a good guy. And I'm glad that he got a chance to let the world know how he felt.
Yeah. And you bring up baseball families. I mean, Jerry, you know this better than anybody probably. Like, he's been around baseball from the time he could, really be cognizant. Like, his dad is a really great baseball player. I mean, people always talk about Griffey Jr., Griffey Sr., and people talk about the holidays now coming into the fray. But Bobby, obviously, again, Jerry, like, your whole family played, but Cecil Fielder and Prince Fielder, Bobby Bonds and Barry Bonds, like, their dads are really great ball players. Great ball players. And, I think it's a really good point and Griffey Jr. has come out and said that he didn't like the way the media treated his father as well. Like, it's definitely, it was a very different time and a much tougher time for those men. And
to the point where he would never play for the Yankees because of it. You know what I mean? Like, and this is the thing. These are the guys that are keeping guys out of the Hall of Fame. The same guys that treated these guys' dads like trash are the ones keeping their sons out because they reacted to it. It's, and I'm sure some of those guys are literally the same guys. What I mean? Like, literally guys that were young at that time and are old now and are making these decisions.
One of the only fixes that I ever thought of is just, you got to wait for these guys to die out. Literally, like, wait for these guys to get too old and not be able to make
I think it needs to not be the baseball writers Hall of Fame. I think it needs to be the baseball players vote guys into the Hall of Fame. The Players Association needs to get involved with that. I think the guys in the era that these guys that are up for the vote. I think those guys should be the ones who say, yeah, this guy belongs in the Hall of Fame. I played against him for 10 years. He's unworldly.
Not to kiss butt, but like, Jerry played 16 years in this era. Like,
he knows.
Just said it. Yeah. I mean, okay. I do want to, because we have a lot of crazy to talk about with SAG, and I want to sandwich some of the hecticness going on in this world. Oh, sorry, Alex.
I was just going to say, I was listening to, this is slightly tangent, but I'll make it real quick. I was listening to Stephen A. talk about his career the other day, and I thought it was really pertinent what he said. The way that he approaches talking to a former professional athlete or a current professional athlete is he always takes a step back and listens to what they have to say about playing the sport. And I think for a long time, the media members that were covering sports talked about the sport in a way that was not involving the former players or the current players. But it's a great thing to see guys like you, Jerry, and you, Steven, host a show together, because that just shows the progress of allowing people to listen to that type of content and that perspective. And I think eventually we'll get to the point where if you're in the media and you're a person like Josh, myself, or Nick, the way that you communicate about the sport is in a way that acknowledges that you don't necessarily know as much as the guys that played the game. It doesn't mean that you're not well researched. It doesn't mean that you don't know the historical facts of it. In fact, you probably do, at least if you're doing the proper amount of care and actually want to be good at that particular profession. But I think we have to also allow the time for things to mature a little bit and for everybody to communicate openly and to get there. And maybe, Nick, some of the people have to take a step back that have been involved and are not willing and too stubborn to let people have that open conversation.
I think you need a little bit of both, because no matter what, before you're a player, and I was very fortunate to be a player, you're a fan. You're a fan of the sport. So I think you need a little bit of both. But really to kind of really emphasize the point you're making, I completely agree with you because, having played against certain players, and I'll hear fans say certain thing about a player, and then I would say, well, I've been on the field with this guy, and the guy you're talking about is here. Players, we know it's an energy, it's a feeling because they're so overly skilled, highly skilled, and they want that at bat in the 8th or 9th inning when the game on the line. We know, and there are certain stars that I played against. They're like, man, that dude does not want the bat in his hands with the game on the line. Okay.
Well, Jerry, we lost you for a second.
Yeah, one thing I would like to add to what you're saying, Alex, is the subtleties and the nuances of playing the game. I talked to guys about this that I coach. I say, there's guys that played the game. There's types of coaches. There's guys that never played that learned how to coach off of watching videos and things like that. There's guys that played in high school. There's guys that played at a higher level. But there's a difference between a guy that played and a guy that was a dominant player. Even the guy that played with Barry Bonds in the major leagues cannot tell you things that Barry Bonds can tell you because they never did it. And obviously Barry knows some things a little bit deeper and a little bit more nuanced than even some of the greatest major leaguers of all time. So, there's levels to it, as they say, and the subtlety and the nuance is something that I think is lost when you don't let the player have a voice in who goes to, the ultimate plateau.
Yeah. I mean, all I really needed.
We still can't hear you, Jerry.
We lost you for a second, Jerry. But I do want to say to one of Jerry's points that, it's all I really needed to hear, like you were saying, Alex, it's great to hear from the former players, but all you really need to hear sometimes is a guy like Jerry, who we, joked about hitting, 326 before we got on, in one season, a guy that could hit 300 in the major leagues, saying he felt like a high schooler playing up against Barry Bonds. Like that level of cognizant, like, hey, look, I'm a major leaguer for multiple years, but this guy made us feel substantially worse than we actually were because he was so dominant. And I mean, yeah, it's kind of what I was going to before with a guy that, Jerry brought up in Ohtani, another guy that's really taken the world by storm. And I wanted to get on a more positive light note. I wanted to get your guys' feelings on him, what he's meant for everybody. And where you guys think he's going to be playing his second half of the season in baseball, because Jerry, every team you played for seems to be in the mix for Ohtani. So where do you guys want to see him go, and where do you think he'll go?
We still can't.
Yeah, he's gonna give him a second.
So
Steve,
I'll answer it while he's doing that. I'll answer it. I would love to see him just come over, come down the freeway a little bit and come to the Dodgers. I think he'd be great. He's great for Southern California. I think that if I had to say, there's a couple teams, there's a few, I'd say 3 teams that I would say would be the ones. The Yankees, obviously, the Dodgers, the Padres. The Padres have been spending a lot of money on guys like Soto and all of that. And I think that they've been surprising me with what they've been willing to do. And Tatis got a big contract, and I think we'll see though. But I'd love to see him in a Dodger uniform.
Yeah, Dodgers would be fun. I think it's like Dodgers, Yankees, or what everyone's saying. Oh, Jerry,
we still can't hear you.
We can't hear you, man. Sorry.
Can't hear you.
Yeah. Well, we can hop in the chat on the side. I'll help you on the side, and I'll let Nick relish in the Padres. Ohtani potentially going to his Padres.
Yeah, that'd be exciting. I mean, you see that this ownership is committed and wants to go all in for this fan base, being the only professional sports team in San Diego now and trying to bring that first championship to San Diego. And I mean, obviously money is not the obstacle here because they're throwing money left and right to people, multi-$100 million contracts. It'll be interesting to see if they can squeeze all that money in together, if they want to make a full commitment to him in free agency and then also want to do the same thing for Soto. But I mean, if you're really looking for someone to get you over a hump, a guy who can do both pitch and hit, And then, of course, bring in that Japanese audience as well. I mean, that's a huge marketing play for you. I mean, we've got Hassan Kim already, who's the Korean sensation, and all of Korea watches him play. Now, if you get all of Japan to watch you play, I mean, that's more money flowing into your organization than you've ever had.
Yeah. Steven, do you see, you threw out New York, you threw out the Yankees. Do you feel like it's too much of a differentiation in regards to just that, what that media culture is in that city, in comparison to what he already knows in California and LA area?
I don't think so. I think because he's so big in Japan, I think he would be able to deal with whatever media market. He seems like a very level-headed guy. He's been a superstar for a very long time, not just in the major leagues, but in his upbringing and all of that. So I think he could deal with it anywhere. But again, I think that he's comfortable in Southern California, and I think that playing in the same weather and all of that would be a good thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry, you may need to try it without the AirPods. We can't hear you. I think maybe you got them out.
No, check your. Yeah, I think they're.
If you hit the settings knob at the bottom of the screen and change the microphone to audio, where it says like mic, and then you can hit like the computer button.
Yeah.
Do some troubleshooting. No, still nothing.
No, still nothing.
If you go to edit mic settings, if you go to settings and then you go to your mic, just make sure it's not still selected on the AirPods and that it's your computer audio that's selected for both your speaker and your headphones.
Maybe he's going to try to come back in.
Also, just a shout out to Jerry displaying the acting chops here with the pantomime
really impressive.
skills. They've been very on point. He's very much.
I get his emotion.
Wording everything out with his mouth, which I can read. I mean, I appreciate it. I don't know. He's displaying the talent, that's for sure.
Is he coming back in? You there, Jared? No. Maybe you should restart your computer.
Yeah, we'll get him back in a second and figure it out. But he was cooking before. I think everything. Sorry, Nick.
I was going to say, let's discuss this SAG strike a little bit. Please, because Steven, you've been in the acting business for such a long time, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of what's going on with the strike here.
Like we talked about earlier, there's always going to be obstacles. When new technologies come into play, there's always going to have to be a negotiation of the new pay structure. And how, we share the wealth. The writers started, then the actors come on, and I'm sure the directors are right behind us, and we're in solidarity. So, I feel that it's, I've been through a few of these types of labor negotiations, and, we've always gotten it figured out. I trust, Fran Drescher and the rest of our leadership in SAG, and I think that we'll ultimately get it figured out. I feel I have, personally, nobody wants to be on strike. I want to work, but I also feel very fortunate that I have three projects in the can right now that happened just before the writers' strike. So I'm in a good position personally to wait it out. But I know there's a lot of people who are not that fortunate and they want to get back to work. So I'm hoping that we can come to the table in good faith and get things hammered out and get back onto the tracks.
For anyone who hasn't been through this before, anyone in the industry that's a creative, a writer, or an actor, or someone on the crew side, as you're talking about the directors as well, who will probably, stand up in solidarity with the writers and the actors. What advice would you give them in this time where they don't know when they could be back to work, or they don't know when projects are going to be back up and running?
It's tough to give advice. The only advice I can give is don't go out there and take, non-union work. It's not a good idea. There's loyalty involved here, and SAG takes it very seriously. But we never know how long it's going to last. So any advice I would give now could be worthless if it lasts a long time, or if it lasts a short time. You know what I mean? It's just stay the course. Hopefully if you're somebody who makes your sole living as an actor, hopefully you've saved and you have some money and residuals coming that you can live off of while we're waiting. And if you're somebody who's just getting into the business, you probably have another job anyway, because this isn't paying your bills 100%. So,
Right.
you should feel fortunate that you have that job. Other than that, just stay the course and stay in solidarity.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a classic, like the way that the studios and the producers are acting, it's just so, to me, it's just kind of a very aligned with the way a lot of higher ups across, a multitude of things are acting in regards to the people below them. Like there's such a callous approach to the actors and the writers. And there's such a general lack for their well-being. And like, do I get the business side of things? Like, yes, from a business standpoint, you are trying to profit as much as you possibly can. Like that's very black and white what these people are trying to do at the top. But where have we lost the humanity and all in the world, really, where, we can't sacrifice a little bit of money for people's happiness, for people to
not just people, the people who are making you the money. You know what I mean? It's like these people are making the money based on what we as actors and they as writers are putting on the screen for them to put out. It's the same though with sports. I mean, a lot of times the owners have to be negotiated with by the players and the player associations and things like that. So at the end of the day, it's just people need to do the right thing by everybody and act in good faith and treat people the way they would want to be treated.
Yeah, it's like the first thing you learn growing up as a kid. It's the age-old lesson. But I mean, we see it all the time in Los Angeles where we live, reside. Like the homeless issue is it's like the big. I walked to get a coffee, and not to tangent too far off, but I walked to get a coffee, and I passed 4 or 5 homeless people in a less than half-mile walk, and it's like, I'm all for people making as much as they possibly can, especially if they work hard. Like I'm not going to rag on a guy like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg because they came up with ideas, they busted ass, and they put forth, like they followed their passion and they put the time in to get where they are. But there has to be some give and take in the disparity in money going on to the studios and the actors and the writers, people making you. There has to be some disparity in this world of all the people making this top dollar, and then you're stepping over people on the streets. Like where.
I mean, when I see a Deadline article where, an unnamed executive is saying, I don't care if writers are out of their homes, like that's where the line is crossed, right? Like, how can you want that sort of malicious type of thought on another human being? And again, like Stephen, like you said, someone who is actually making you.
It's interesting that he's unnamed. He doesn't care, but he doesn't care, but he's a coward. Like if you don't care, then you should put your face and your name to it.
Because you clearly don't care.
So true.
Because you don't care.
Like,
right?
So true.
Yeah. It was unfathomable that I read that, and I was like, oh, I knew you've had that thought. I know you've always had the thought, but the fact that it's actually in writing, you can't erase that now. I mean, the one thing that we know about anything that's out there is that it never goes away now. So hopefully that guy stays for his own sake, anonymous, because
if one person wrote it, I'm sure a group of other people, a dozen more think it as well. There's probably a lot of executives who feel that way.
Oh, they all feel
it's
it.
despicable.
Yeah, if it was only one person that felt that way, the issue would be resolved.
I wouldn't say they all do, though. I wouldn't go that broad. I know a lot of executives who are very good people and who do, who go above and beyond to try to make us as actors feel appreciated and, do things that you would never expect them to do just because, they, like when we were doing Run the World during the pandemic, Lionsgate flew the entire cast and our producers to set for our season privately instead of making us go through airports, Granted, it has a lot to do. It had, something to do with the fact that they didn't want us to be exposed to COVID while we were trying to get there. But at the same time, they didn't have to fly us, charter us private jet and send us that way. They could have put us on red eyes or, just asked us to be extra careful and all of that. They did things that they didn't have to do to make sure that we felt safe. So I think there's a group of people out there who don't do the right thing and feel certain ways. But then I also think there's a group out there who, because there are a lot of executives who were former actors and writers,
Right.
and so they know
For
how
sure.
it feels.
Yeah, 100%. We want to leave some time for your favorite sports memories. We teased it at the top. What is your favorite sports memory of all time? It could be from you playing, you watching as a fan, anything in your life or your career. Jerry, let's start with you. Let's see if that mic works.
Yeah, exactly.
We got you.
Got me? Yes.
There we go, man. I appreciate you sticking with us and listening and being like a part of the convo, man.
Perseverance.
Whether knowing the mic worked or not.
No worries. I have a couple. I got a chance to play with a lot of great players. Probably a couple that stick out to me. I was on the team when Cal Ripken decided to end his streak. I was a September call-up, just got to the big leagues. I was there a week. And Cal Ripken comes up, sits next to me right before the game, probably about 20, 30 minutes before the game. And he comes up to me. He's got a Coca-Cola cup filled with beer. And I'm like, "You're drinking this before the game?" And he goes, "I'm not playing." I'm like, "Man, get out of here." And he told me there, he had told the manager, obviously he told a couple other people that he wasn't playing. And he decided to end the streak then and there. And that was a pretty cool moment. The Yankees giving him a standing ovation from the visiting dugout. And everybody giving him a standing ovation. A guy that grew up admiring Cal Ripken, playing every single day, to be in the dugout and watch him get that ovation. That was pretty cool. I remember being in Miami. I led off for the Reds in 2008. And I remember there was some show on, but they were talking about Ken Griffey Jr. He was stuck on 599 home runs, and they're having a debate. When is he going to break 600 if he is going to do it this season? And they started kind of getting on Junior. And I'm sitting down, Junior's standing up right behind me. And he heard this conversation. He goes, "Oh, that's it. I'm doing it tonight. Tonight's tonight. Tonight's tonight." And I let off, and Junior hit third. So I was like, "Man, I got to get on base. I got to get on base because he's going to do it." When a guy like him says he's going to hit tonight, you best believe he's gonna go deep tonight. So I was able to get on base, and I was on third base. He always wanted me to steal third, less than 2 outs, because at the very least he gets a sac fly. That way he can go for a home run. I stole third, and he hit a home run, and I was at home to greet him. Mind you, Ken Griffey Jr. was like our Michael Jordan, at least for me. To be there at home greeting Ken Griffey Jr., my favorite player, for his 600th home run, that truly was a special moment. I have the picture right behind me, me greeting him at home plate. And then lastly was I was in left field when we clinched in 2009 when I was with the Yankees. I was in left field, and Shane Victorino hit a ground ball to Robinson Cano, and then it was hysteria. And to get running to the center of the field, piling on your teammates, something I will never forget. Christening the new Yankee Stadium with a World Series championship, I will never forget it. So it was a great group of guys. We did have some pressure because we had a great team. We wanted to make sure we win it, and we did. And those are the moments I really remember.
That's awesome. I mean, those are all phenomenal. I was a big Padres fan growing up, so I'm still am. But it was really cool to see you and your brother play on the same team together.
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned that because I could bring in my brother Scott. His jersey is right number 12. That's my brother Scott, and he's 4 years younger than I am. So growing up, we played together on Little League teams because I'm 4 years older. We got a chance to play together for Team Mexico because my mom is from Sonora, Mexico. That was incredible. But playing for the Padres, I got a chance to be on base where my brother hit a home run, my little brother, and to greet him at the plate, that was special too. So I'm glad you mentioned that, so I can plug in my brother Scott, who had a great career. To greet him at home plate and be his teammate. That was fun. That was a fun experience.
Yeah, wow. It's really, I mean, all really, really cool memories, you know, with yourself and other stars. I mean, that Phillies Yankees World Series was both rosters were really strong. That was a slobber knock. That was like a really good, two really, really amazing teams. Steven, what about you, man? From you playing, watching, anything, man?
Watching, Barry chase the home run records, where it was something, that I was glued to the TV for those, every night, hoping that he would do it. And, seeing when he finally broke it, coming around and having his son at the plate, that was a great moment because I actually knew his son. I met him when, Barry and I worked out when I was in college, and he was a baby at the time. You know what I mean? I also have a great memory of Barry in the World Series against my former college alma mater mate, Troy Percival. I really enjoyed that, watching that and seeing Barry, go deep off Troy. And I think I really liked that just because I knew both of the guys involved pretty well. And it was such a big moment in baseball that it was just like, wow, man, I've had the fortune to meet and play with and work out with some really, really special athletes in my life. And then, Tiger Woods winning his last Masters was a big moment for me. You know what I mean? I really, his comeback story, coming back from all the adversity that he had seen to that point and winning the Masters and putting on that jacket again was a great story of perseverance and resiliency. So, I've always been a big fan of Tiger as well.
Really getting a good point to kind of tie back to what you said earlier. Like, Tiger got a second chance, right? And
Yeah.
B, like, it's not about, he's a great player. We were judging him on whether he was a quote unquote good person, right? But we let him continue to play and his play speak for itself. So I think that's a good point to y'all that we all made earlier about, the Hall of Fame is not about being good people, but being a good player first and foremost. And as you guys are saying, Barry's a good person. Gents, really awesome stuff. Appreciate you guys coming on. Love the show. Keep it going. We're excited to see all the cool guests you guys have coming up. 2 former baseball players, 2 current actors. My stat correction at the end. Sorry to besmirch both your other careers at the top of the show. Hollywood Swingin, Jerry Hairston Jr., Stephen Bishop. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and go check their show out, everyone. We'll see you guys next time. Hit your free throws.